in listen-only mode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome out there from Cyberland to Revit, the basics of topography and surfaces. I'm Matthew Jensen, your AEC Solutions Specialist, and several other titles which we won't name. And I'm here with Brian Juge and Jennifer Hoskins here, and we're going to have a great webinar for you. Brian?
Howdy. Well, before we get started, just as get you all familiarized, we're going to have our basic interface in here, so you can go in and raise your hand at any point. And before we get started, just to make sure you all can hear us, can we get the all too familiar raising of the hands? So everybody out there, if you can hear us, seems like people are doing that.
I like to think of it more as giving us a high five.
That's true, the virtual high five. All right, and then throughout the course you might have questions. You guys can go ahead and post those. I'm going to lower the hands now. We're going to do this webinar a little bit different. I'm going to just go ahead and start to go through about a half hour of putting the topo together, building some stuff for you. So I'll go over the agenda on what we're going to do in here and bring that right along. But we'll be putting that together and then have you guys ask your question at the end. So I'll be going through these steps, importing a topo, the background, like you would. So it might be a CAD file or points file. And then get in and creating the basic topo surface, start a building on the site, and then import a building to that same site so we can show how we can do it both ways, or how I could export that building. I'll give you a real quick way of doing that. And then creating a site wall and kind of changing topography, so some basic site manipulations and kind of other pointers and stuff on top of that. So that's kind of the overview, and then after that we'll be doing questions. If you have some minor comments or things throughout it, go ahead and make those, but if you have other questions, just post them, or we can open up at that time. But I'll be kind of going through and just going through the basics in here. And this was really a response to a webinar we did several weeks ago where I was kind of going over some advanced topics in topography, and it seemed like half the audience, or a good portion of the audience there, wanted some more basic stuff, back to the basics of what things are going on. So this is a response to that. Now before I get started, I'm just going to come in here and ask a little poll just to get an idea of who our audience is. Let's see here.
It's some familiar faces out there. Hey everybody.
So here we go. Got a poll on here, so if you guys wouldn't mind responding to that and just answering, how often do you create topography? Get an idea of who's out there in Cyberland and what we're dealing with.
I'll let the intern do it. I like that one.
Yeah, once in a while they gotta have something to do, so we know they don't just sit around all day. All right, I'm going to close that poll here, and then I'm going to share it. And as we can see, about once a month. So about half of you out there that responded, doing that once a month. And I've got one other, just to get us to how easy is it to, let me launch this one. How easy do you find it to create topography in Revit? Hopefully it's not easy for a lot of you, or, why are we here? But let's see what we got out there.
I'll tell you, Brian, I use it every day.
I know.
Okay, no I don't.
Okay. Well, being all the Boulder braver guys, the president there of the young professionals.
We're bold. We are bold.
Yes.
Any of you out there in the Boulder area, if you're looking for a good networking opportunity, the Boulder Young Professionals, we're a chamber organization. Check us out. It's a great opportunity to do some networking.
All right, we'll close that poll and post it. Share it with everybody here, and we can see that it takes some time, but most people can manage. And then some of us are in the it's hard. It looks like one or two people, but again, let the intern figure it out. All right, so we'll hide those, and then I'm going to jump right into it here. So get in and escape, and lo and behold, I'm going to start with something you might not be familiar with, but that is going to be AutoCAD. So really, I'm going to jump into AutoCAD. I'm not going to really, I know this is Revit, but I just want to point out that a lot of times you're going to get into a situation where you need topography. Well, our topography is either going to come from a civil engineer, or it might actually come from here I have Bluebeam where I'm using a JPEG image, and this is where I got this particular site plan from. So we can go in and get that JPEG or that PDF or whatever we need to, and we can convert this over. So I just want to throw out there that there are some other options. But for the most part, you're not going to get a topography that's already made in Revit. You're going to have to go and create it somehow. Okay, here's a little piece called Raster Design, and it's an add-on to AutoCAD. Most of you should have it if you're in subscription, but you can see there's raster tools in here. And within that, I can go in and click on these different lines. It actually does it kind of manually for you, and it sets it up at different heights. So I'm going to click over here on my little 3D cube, but you can see these topo lines are from the raster design, and it kind of just follows that graphic, that JPEG image, and kind of creates that for you. So I'm just going to show you that you have other tools. We're not going to really get into that today, but then I'm going to bring up the next part. Okay, so we need to get those topo areas in here. So what I've done is I've got that basic topo plan we saw from AutoCAD, and here it is inside of Revit. And I'm just going to go to my site plan so we can kind of see that in here, but I've inserted that. So when we're going in and inserting CAD files, we go to Insert, we go into Link CAD. In this case, I select my topo, and then when I'm setting that up, I want to be able to make sure I'm bringing that in the right place. So I'm going to make sure I have origin to origin. So that's going to be important to have in here. So important things to point out when you're going in and you're getting the topography in there. If you're working with the civil engineer, we have state plane systems and state plane coordinates and all this stuff that picks up on the origin. A lot of stuff that the civil engineers care about, but us as architects, we could, whatever. The only problem with that is that inside Revit, we have something called an origin point. So when we're linking this origin to origin, those origin points cannot be outside a 20-mile radius. Okay, so we have to stick within that 20-mile radius. Now, if you're looking at Colorado, you might have a site that's well outside of that. I would think that would be pretty typical. Wouldn't you agree, Jennifer?
I would definitely agree. I mean, you're talking about less than, halfway across town here in some instances. So.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the state plane system, there's like 4 of those for Colorado, the origin
we're talking
points?
about huge areas that the whole state plane can cover. So, I mean, your origin could be way down in one corner of the state, and your actual design area is hundreds of miles away. So.
Okay. Now, would it be easy for a civil engineer if I just asked from, hey, just change your origin point? Is that just something that I should ask of my civil engineer?
No, because civil engineers care where the actual site is, and it has to be geo-referenced in the correct location.
So you heard that here. Civil engineers care. Probably not about us and our problems, but they do care, and it's going to be a hard issue to get them to change that origin point. Sure. So getting back into the AutoCAD, I'll just flip back into there, we want to make sure that when we're dealing with some kind of plan, and I've got the location of 0 in here, you might have to actually, and heaven forbid, plug your ears if you're a civil engineer, move the origin point to get it a little bit closer. Now, yeah. Now, there are other ways of handling this, and we have other webinars. One was dealing with Revit and AutoCAD together, where Brian Haley, our resident civil engineer, and I were online, and we kind of talked about how to coordinate these two things together. So I highly recommend you guys check that out if you want different types of workflows in working with civil engineers with that in the site plan. But if you don't, or you're doing something like this, we need to move this CAD file within that 20-mile radius. Now, things outside of 2 miles actually get a little graphical errors, so I would actually recommend you want to be closer than 20 miles. You want to be within 2 miles, which is a pretty small area for a site plan when we're talking with the civil guys. Not that they're always that civil, but we have them in here. So we want to set up those topo plans. We want to have that topography. We want to bring that in here. So now that we've put that inside, another thing I want to point out is when you're bringing that in, you want to make sure you're unchecking this correct lines that are slightly off axis. Okay, this corrects the guy that can't draw straight in AutoCAD. It's supposed to make those lines that are less than a degree line up. But in the civil side, or when you're dealing with landscape or anything like that, you want to make sure that those lines are off axis if that is the case. So we don't necessarily want to have those corrected. We might want to do that in a different way.
It's not our fault surveyors can't shoot straight.
Yeah, exactly. So now that we'll put this in here and import, I've already done this, but we can go in here and specify the different layers. So you might want to clean those up in AutoCAD ahead of time, so you just bring in what you need. So once we have that in here, we can see we brought this inside, and I'll go to a 3D view, but you can see I have my topo lines way up here, and then my boundary property lines are way down in here. So you can see that in 3D. All right. So now the next part is to actually make the topography, to make the site. So inside here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the masking and site, go to Topo Surfaces, and then I'm going to create it from the import instance. Now, I've heard some people come in here and say that they come in and they're going to place a lot of dots. That's if you have the JPEG, but I'm going to tell you right now, again, it's going to be better making that JPEG in AutoCAD and then bringing it into Revit as actual vector lines. I am not going to spend the time to place a bunch of points. That would take me forever to do. So that we've got AutoCAD is a way better program for that, and we want to use the right program for the right application.
You heard it. He said AutoCAD's a better program.
For that. Oh, we're going to get in a fight with the civil guys. It won't be civil in here at all. All right, so we're going to create it from import instance.
Civil unrest.
Yes, civil unrest. So select the import instance, and you can see I can do the CAD file or I can do a points file in here. I've got the option of both, but I have the CAD file. So I'm going to come in and select that. And then the next thing is going to ask us which lines are we going to use, or which layers we're going to use from AutoCAD. So to double check that, if you ever needed to, I'll just go back in here and just show you real quick. You can select this and go to Query, and I can select that line. It's going to tell me, these are the major contours. So we might have to go back in and check that. I can check a couple of them, but they're all the major. That's how I had it set up. So again, I'll go back in here, masking in site, topo surface, created from instance, and I select this instance. I just need the majors, and I hit OK. Nothing happens. Well, that's not quite the case. It actually brought in the topo, but it's way out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to hit finish, and let's go find it. Okay. And what we'll see is that, there's the topo surface way up there, but we were down here in our site plan. And because the site plan is using our first floor level, it had a view range. So it wasn't able to pick that up. So you might need to come back in here. So one of the tricks that I'll do, let me go back there real quick, is when I'm placing that in here, I'll actually place an additional point. It's not going to work because I'm way below it. Let's see, we'll come out this way. Sometimes you place an additional point, you can go in and find it. If not, if that's not working for you, I'll just hit finish. Go into your 3D view, zoom extents, and you'll be able to find that topo surface. Now at this point, I won't get into the property line, but we can go in and hide that topo surface in a particular area. So now that I've got this topo surface in here, the next part I'm going to get into is I'm going to start looking at creating my buildings and levels and using those within the project. Okay, so I'm going to go in here to the south view, and I've got the south view, and you can see I have my original level in here, my first floor, and I've conveniently actually just started to draw another level up here at the level I want to be using and bringing in my building. So I have a house level in here that I'm going to propose that we start drawing things on. So that's what I did. I drew that up. You can see I already moved my boundary in here, so when I go and clip that out, that is going to be my south elevation now, and then I've got one for my west elevation. You can see it's way down here. So you're going to have to go in and start finding where the topo plan is. Did they draw it at actual height above sea level? Was it just 600 feet up and you have some other kind of datum? So there's a little bit of talk to put in here, and we can see that this is at 680 feet. Now this is actually in Breckenridge, so this is 9,680 feet is where this is actually at. And I'll show you how we can go in and represent that within the project. So I'm going to go in and look for my origin point. So I'm going to reveal the hidden elements. Here is my project base point. I select that project base point, and I have the elevations and stuff in here. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say that this is at 9,000 feet because 0 is at 9,000 feet. I bring that up, and lo and behold, it disappears. But what's happening, it actually moved that up 9,000 feet. I left my surveyor point down here, and I'm not going to use that right now, but I have that in here, but you can see that moved that up to that particular angle. So I'm going to hide that again, and then come back inside. Now we can see it's moved up 9,000 feet, but my level still does not reflect that. So the next thing I'm going to look at doing is selecting that level, and I'm going to change it. Instead of using the project base point, I'm going to use the surveyor point. So I select the level, go into edit type. I've got the project base point. At this point, I'm going to use the surveyor point, and now we can see that it's reflecting the actual level above the sea.
And we got a quick question come in. Why not just move the first floor level to that height?
We could. That's a great question. And there's sometimes I like leaving the first floor where it's at because that is the original CAD file. So good question out there. If we come in and we move this up, we can see that the CAD file image is actually moving up too. And that's going to give us a lot of problems if I ever need to remake this, because you're moving the CAD images up too. So now my topo might stay there, but the CAD stuff is going to move because that was placed on that level. And originally I didn't know where that level was. So that's not going to be an option if I want to keep that CAD stuff in here, and I do. So I'm going to hit undo and bring that back. But great question while we're in here. That's why we're not going to move that up. We're going to leave that where it was. Okay, so I'm going to come in and just move that down. That becomes the only view in there. All right. Now if I don't need the CAD file at the moment, I can always go back into my Insert, Manage Links, and I'm just going to go in here and I can unload it for a while. Hit unload. Hit OK, it disappears. Now I'm just left with the actual topo plan. So I'm going to go into my house level that I'm going to start my plan in here, and oh no, shoot, it's not in here. Well, we also have to remember that our basic floor plans, at least some of us, when we're going in here, the topography is already turned off. So we have to go back in the visibility graphics and turn that back on.
What'd you do?
Yeah,
What you do, Richard?
exactly. So I've got that in here, and this is kind of where I'm going to put my house right now. I'm going to put in a 3D view and kind of split my screen so that I have some convenient way of laying this out in here. So here we go. And then I might come in and start putting in some different levels and stuff. So this is where we could, let's see, go in here in architecture or structure, and I'm going to start drawing some levels in here. So I've got my house, and I'll just start putting something in here, and I can see, there's the level in here. Now I'm going to come into that south view again and split this up, and you can see, okay, that seems like a pretty good spot. Maybe I need to move this a little bit further down in here, and I'm going to get this wall in here for the house and start building that out. So I can start building my house out this way. Maybe it's a good time to introduce another level in here, so I can go back into the architecture and bring in another level above that. So I've got that in here. Maybe I'm saying, oh, I want 12 feet above that, so I got my 12-foot step for my next level. So now I'm starting to introduce that within the project. Come back over here, select those walls, and now I can bring them up from that level up to, in this case, level 6, and then bring the next part of the house up. So maybe I'm going to bring this wall down a little bit, that house out. This wall seems a little bit too far out, and start stepping that up the mountain that way. Now I can go up to the next view, level 6, and start building the next part of the house. So, I'm just kind of doing some very basic stuff out here. Shouldn't be anything new to anybody. And bringing that back up. Next part of the house in there. And we can start seeing that got that one, and level 6, and we'll just do it unconnected for now to 12 feet up from that. Put that down at 0 and build the next one up. So I'm starting to build higher and higher within my project, and I'm starting to build that element up, or I can be doing with massing. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Okay. At some point, we're going to want to detach this project from the site. Okay, and you heard it here. So how do we get the building out? It's going to be a bigger benefit for us to have these as separate links in here, or AutoCAD terms, XREFs. So I'm going to go in here and make the walls and stuff a link. The way I'm going to get that done is I'm just going to select them, because maybe I've got a pretty good design and I got different things in here. And then I'm going to come in here and do a little trick. I'm going to make them a group. So I create this group, and I'm just going to call it, house 1. At least that's the intent. Group house 1. What the heck? Group
Like-
House 1.
It's like Big Brother.
Exactly. Now that I've made that a group, one of my advantages up here is I can now make it a link. So I'm going to make this a link file, replace it with a new project file. So I set that as a link, put this in the place I want to, wherever your file structure is going to be. So I'll put it back in here. Same name as the group name. Hit save. And now this is a linked project. You saw it really quickly open up that dialog, create the link, and now I have a separate building file. At this point, I can go in, open up that building in here, and it'll unlaunch this. But you can see there's a new project in here with that building inside. Okay, and then we can continue using the building as a separate file, and then link that. It's already linked in. And then at one point, I can then go back and link the site into the building plan. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here and do another scenario where I've got the different file. Maybe I play with the building for a while, or I've abandoned that building and I've started another one. I want to link that in. So I'm going to close this file out. Actually, I'll minimize it for now. We might need to go back to it. But I'm going to open up another file in here, and it's going to be the site plan. Hopefully it's this one. All right. And I've got this site plan in here, like we had before. And now I'm going to bring in a building plan. So I'm going to insert a Revit building project, okay, that I've been working on. So in here, I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to get to my Revit link file, and I'm going to grab a building called Building 1. Now, if I've already had some shared coordinates, I can set that up. But I don't have those yet, so I'm just going to do origin to origin again and hit Open.
Did you have them sign the non-disclosure?
Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet. So here I have that building. We can see it's down here. It's not directly facing any way I want, but I'm going to come in here and go to the top view in here. So I've got my building, and I'm just going to place it kind of on the site where I want it to be. Really hard to see, so I'll go in here and do a wireframe so I can see what's going on. Then I'm going to go in and rotate it around to get it to about what we're looking at, something like that. A little bit more. So this site I've been doing for a while. I have a house similar to this on the project already. But I've got this built up. Now I can see if I go to my south elevation, there's my building, but it's totally not in the right place in here. So I'm going to grab that building, and I'm just going to simply move it on up to the east side. Get that deluxe apartment. There we go. Move it up and down in there. So I've got that building kind of in the area that I want inside the project. So now I'm going to come in, show you a hidden line, and it's kind of got the area I want. So I can see that, I've got a retaining wall here, and I'm going to start grading this area out, putting in some building pads. Maybe it needs to go down or up a little bit more, in and out, so I can start using that on the site. And that can be that building that I originally started with, or a brand new building that I can bring in here. The biggest thing we're looking at is, hey, if that building needs to go up or down, it's really easy for me to grab it. It's one object. What we want to avoid is having that site plan inside the building plan. We're like, wow, it would be really easy to move the site up and down. But why wouldn't we want to move the site up and down?
Because the site doesn't move up and down.
Yeah, the Earth doesn't move up and down. Well, not at that rate anyway, unless you're from California, which I am, and occasionally it does. But so we don't want to be moving the Earth up and down. We would just want to be moving the building up and down and putting it into place. We want to leave the site kind of where it needs to be. Okay, so we'll bring that in here.
The houses are rocking.
Yep. So now we've kind of got that inside. You can see we've got to start introducing some other things into our plan. So I'm going to go in here.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment it looks kind of difficult to get in that garage.
Oh, it's easy enough. It's just fine.
Just grab a shovel.
So I'm going to go to the south view, and then another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a level to correspond. So we can see that, this level that's way out here, that was that house level. Since that's going to be the level I want to associate things with, I've got the house kind of placed where I want. So I'm going to go back in here and go to Modify, and I'm just going to line that up. I'm not going to lock it, but I'm going to line that up so that I can see that house level is equal to 0 of the first floor. So I've got that in place. I have a known area for this thing to link and build into itself. Okay, so hopefully everybody's able to follow the logic behind that in here. And I'm just going to actually override this a little bit and halftone it so we can always see the difference in the levels in there if we need to build them up. So that's another kind of trick that we can do within here. All right, so let's go back into the house plan. And now the next step would be to start doing our grading within our project in here. So I'm just going to stick to this level right in here for now, in here, but I'm going to go over a couple little steps in here that we want to follow, okay? The next thing we're going to look at is looking at a graded region, so you might want to put a graded region in here. What this does is allows you to do things like looking at cuts and fills. It also allows you a way of restarting the project or restarting the topography when you completely mess up. So this is going to be an important thing that you really want. Other tools we have in here are contour labels. So we can go in here and label the contours and start to see all the different elevations we will have in there. Other parts that we can get into is if we go into the massing in site, is we can vary how many contours that we're displaying in here. So we, in the model in site, if we go over to this little site settings, we can see right now that we're showing the major contours, which are the heavy lines. So you here have 670, and then we have another heavier one at 680 if we're up high enough. But all the interstitial ones are at 1 foot.
They're called minors.
The minors, major and minor. I had that as a layer in CAD. I wrote that in. But now I can come in there and put a minor one and change that to secondary contour in Revit. That's what we call them in Revit, secondary contours. So we've got those in. We can do 2 feet. We can do every 5 feet. So you can vary those within a project. That's really nice. Another thing we can do is maybe you have some kind of floodplain or a different type of height that you need to point out in here. You can insert that. So maybe we want to, at 675, we need to insert a single value. We can go into insert. At the start in here, we can do 675 as a single value. I want to do a hidden line and hit apply. Now, when it first starts out, it doesn't work, so I'm going to hit OK. Come back in here. Apply again. Change that over to primary contours. You can see that now up here. Then go back to hidden line, or I can make that a red line or whatever I need. So that can be for a floodplain.
Yeah, being a floodplain.
Or a view. So if we have the ridge line issues up in the mountains that we need to maintain, and maybe you can't build over a certain topography for that, we can build that in there, or whatever type of area you need to indicate. So those are just some more useful tools. Another one we have, and this one you really need to change, is this elevation opposed shade base. So I'm going to hit OK and go back to the south elevation in here, and let's see. Actually, I'm going to cut a site plan. That would be better. So I'm coming here and cut a section through here. And one of the problems we get into is we cut a section, and whoa, Brian, big old section in here. But when we're looking at that, we go, wow, this is really deep. But what we'll find out is that the bottom of this is negative 10 feet to the bottom. And you're always going to be cropping this out and trying to figure out, well, why do I have so much ground in here? Well, that has to do with this area in here saying elevation bottom. So I'm going to come in here and put this in at 590, hit apply, and you'll see that disappear. And it didn't disappear, it just shrunk up to be 500, starting at 590 feet. So that just gives you an ability to control that.
Get an excavator to work that fast.
Yeah. So now we've got that in here, kind of set it up. Again, we're kind of setting this up so we can work in it. And I can pull this down a little bit, have it a little bit easier area for me to control within the model. I'm going to go back in that view. And I'm going to now go back in the site and do the graded region. Create one exactly like the other. So I can put that in there. Now I've got 2 surfaces to play with. Okay? So I'm going to actually hit cancel. But that's what you're going to need to do to put the 2 surfaces in here. And then you're going to have them set at different phasing. I'm not going to do through all of that. Last part to get in here before we start opening up for questions is, okay, we've got our site work. What other tools do we have, or what other tools that we can use in here to start helping us? Well, we have basement in here, but one of the things that would be nice to do is inside my project set up kind of a slab. Well, we have another tool in here in the site area that instead of doing the slabs, we have what's called a building pad. So I'm going to draw a building pad out here. And I could use the walls, but I'm in the model, so the link won't work. But I can come in here. Now I'm going to put this building pad at the house level. So I'm going to put it over here and hit that. Now, when I have set that up, you can see what it does is it automatically moves the topography to meet it. So the pad is used to move the topography up and down. And this is what I would put so that I don't have the earth going through my house or garage or anything else. And one of the things I'll use is that because in the main building I have the garage slab, I actually will change my building pad to be my vapor barrier or my sand and gravel or whatever it needs to be underneath the building slab. And that's going to help us or help me control that a little bit more. And then if I accidentally forget to turn it off for some reason or whatever, I'm not going to have double line work and I'm not sitting there for 20 minutes trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, wait, it's in the site plan. It's not in the actual building. And it just gets really confusing. So we want to kind of try to work on that. So that's what the building pad does. And we can use this by sloping it. So you can edit the boundary. We can put a slope in there to slope it at a different angle in here. And then just kind of get that to rise and fall in here. And you can see a little topo line. Let's see if I can go in there real quick, edit again. But just to give you a more dramatic view, if I need to slope this up to, let's say, just 20 feet, something drastic, but you can see there it's sloping, and we've got that. That's going to be great for introducing company into the garage there. But we've got that to work within our project. Okay, so I've got that building pad in here, and wherever that building pad happens to move, it's going to push the topography up and down, but it doesn't actually change the topo lines. It just suppresses them or moves them up. Okay?
So a quick question, Brian. Does your building pad become your basement or garage floor?
Yeah, getting back into that again, for me, the answer is no. I know some people that do, but occasionally they're going to have problems with graphic issues. So this actually is below the basement or garage floor, and I make it a vapor barrier or a gravel, sand and gravel, or whatever your soils engineer is going to have you do, or structural engineer is going to have you do underneath that slab. So I'll come in, edit the type in here, and if I'm going to make that a vapor barrier, I'll put that in as like 1/4 inch. I might put a material on it, and then that's going to be directly below the basement itself. So hopefully that answers it up for you. All right, and then the last part getting into is kind of the art part. And this is where I'll tell people, hey, Revit, when you get to topography, is an art, not a science, okay? And just like everything. So civil engineers are loving it. So yeah, it's an art, not a science. It takes time to do these things. You have to develop it over a period. So you're going to have to do your schooling. Before I get any further, I'm going to just tell you that I'm going to work within this area right in here and kind of deal with this wall that we're going to be using in here and kind of build up a start to a driveway. Now, I'm by no means a civil engineer, but we're going to just play a little bit in here just to build this up, and Jennifer's going to laugh at me, and that's going to be fine.
Don't hurt yourself, Brian.
Yeah. I always shudder every time I hear an architect talk about grading.
So one of our big tools is going to be the split surface. So I'm going to come in here and click on split surface. Work planes you can use for this operation. Close. So let's see. Let's set our work plane. So set our work plane not associated with the house level. Now I've got that in here. It has to be a horizontal work plane. So getting back in here and go to split surface. I'm going to pick my area. I'm just going to go click on top. Come on. And now I'm going to just kind of carve out the area I want. Now you want to carve out more than you would think. So I'm going to start out here. Yes, I'm going to go inside the house a little bit, come out here and come to this area, something like that. Another good tool or use for this is immediately when you get your site, you want to split the surface like 2 feet inside your property line. That way all the work you're doing doesn't disturb your neighbor. So this is another tool in here. Now when I'm done, it actually creates 2 topo surfaces. I have surface A and I have surface B. So I'm going to be working on the inside one in here. Okay? Next thing I want to do is, since I'm working on this surface, I want to know, okay, about what level I should be designing this for. So I have the garage level in here, And some other items I might need to use is a spot elevation. So I've got it in here at the spot elevation. Turn off a leader line, but I can put some different spot elevations. I've got this. I know on the outside of this wall I'm going to be using 673, 672, probably along the back side in here, and work my way up to be a little higher. But down on this other end, I'm probably going to be using, we'll take a look in here, the bottom of this garage. And we can put actually a level in here, so I'll just put a level just so we can get an idea. 665 and 6 inches, so that's going to be kind of where my bottom's going to be, at least to start off with while I'm working on this. 665 and 6 inches. Okay. So now I'm going to select this and hit edit the surface. Okay. Immediately I'm going to grab some of these in here and start to do that 665 and 6 inches just to get that worked out. And then I'm going to start addressing the back end of this wall, and I want to look on either side of this wall. So I've got 671 and 665. A lot of S's in my mouth right now. Okay. 671. So absolute elevation of 671. Now you're going to put more dots than I'm going to put in here, or we can put at relative to surface at 0 feet, so that we're going to maintain this wall, and we're not really adding any more height. We're just kind of defining this a little bit more as we're working on. But these marks we're putting in here are what we call control points. So I want to put some more control points in here to help control this side of the wall. I might need a couple more out here just to give it. And they're at 0 feet. Now you'll see some slight adjustments, and that's because of the way Revit deals with topography. It is just kind of a side effect that we're going to have to deal with as we're working on this. Now I'm going to go back in, and I want to use these other ones, so the 665 and 6 inches. I can either introduce new ones in here, which I'm going to do, or I can use these and kind of move these around. But you'll see as these move around right next to the wall, I'm starting to build up and bring this wall plane down a bit more. And right on either side of those, I want to kind of line those up so that I start flattening that area out in here. Okay. This is exact science, right, Jennifer?
Oh, totally.
This is how the civil engineers do it. By the way, they don't want to tell you that, but that's really how they get it done.
I just am amazed that an architect can draw, non-curvy contour lines.
Yeah, see, we're whoa.
Is that the technical term? Non-curvy?
Non-curvy.
Non-curvy, yeah.
Oh, relative to surface, it needs to be absolute elevation. That's what I was putting another one, 665 and 6 inches. So I'm going to put some other ones in here, and we can see that it's starting to bring that surface down. There we go, right along the back side of that. And we can start introducing a couple more of those in here. All right, so now we have that. So 665 and 6 inches, and bringing that down anymore. And we would just continue this process. Now, later on, or in a second, I'm going to show you that we're going to merge these surfaces back together. And what you're going to see the first time I'm going to do this, so I'm going to come in and save this as my surface area. But you can see it's starting to look pretty good in here, and I'm starting to get some really nice work on how to grade this in. Now, I'll also tell you, I haven't done this particular house ahead of time. I just have a similar house on here. So I'm actually happy with myself for the first part, so that's looking good. Other things that you might use that will be helpful in here is on your annotate, you've got your slopes. So if you need to maintain some different slopes, or you've got angle of repose that you want to start looking at in here, we could drop those in. So that's going to be some other nice tools to have in here. And as the topography changes, these numbers are going to update. So you can go in here and start looking at that. Okay, so I'm going to drop a couple more on, and then I'm going to put some spot elevations in here, because I want to show you some things that might be changing. So I've got that in here. I'll put this one in here, put that one in there. So I've done a bit of this work. Now the last part is kind of merging these things together. And you don't always have to do this, but this is one of those things that you wanted to clean things up so you can hide these lines, because this becomes really difficult to hide this line in here. It's almost impossible to make it go away. Even things like modify line work and making this invisible. Let's say change something. You can't snap on that. Topography is not forgiving. It doesn't allow you to do a bunch of stuff. So you're going to have to heal this back together. So you get back in the masking and site, and I'll say merge surfaces. And I'm just going to select surface A and surface B. Now watch what happens when I click the next surface. You might see some deformation happening in here and some unwanted results. This one did pretty good. I put more control points. But if I had less control points, we would see a lot more variation. It wouldn't be looking the way we had originally intended it. We'd get some oddities happening in here, and we'd have to go back and change that. So really getting back into this, Revit is a really good tool for doing topography artistically. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'm not going to say it's the best thing in here. So the reminders, it's an art. Art takes practice. Okay, you've got to practice, practice, practice. You can do this over and over again. I know that it might have looked a little easy in this particular area. I've done it a bunch, so it's not that hard to do once you start working on the same thing.
Brian, you make everything look easy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. The site and the buildings need to end up as separate projects. I won't say that you can start out that way. You can see that we start out with them inside the same project. You can go in, you can separate those. Using graded regions, that's going to be a huge time saver, especially when you commit too far in one direction. You're like, oh, it would be better if I just started over. Well, instead of re-importing the CAD file and doing the whole thing over again, we want to go in and use those graded regions. Take advantage of the split surface and then make control points when you're doing that. So this becomes the tools to get in there. But first and foremost, it's an art. It's not a science. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for some questions in here and see if anybody's got any, what they would like to see or do. Again, this was a response to the last webinar where I kind of, shot the moon, went for everything, and showed quite a bit. And really, you guys were asking for, hey, what's the basics? How do I start off in here? How do I manipulate some topography in here? So looks like we're starting to get some questions in.
Matt, you want to?
Oh, I'd love to. Question from Rick. Most of the time we have the building fairly well drawn as well as some flat topo stuff for design development. But before we get to the topo map from the civil folks, I try to do the auto origin to origin, but frequently, most often, that puts the CAD file miles away. Going to 3D and ZF means I can't even find anything because things are so far away. Help!
All right, so help. All right, Rick, we're going to go back here to AutoCAD, and this is going to be where you have to start. If you're bringing that file in and it's outside the 20-mile range, you're going to get an error. Hands down, it will not give you the topo stuff. We're going to have to go in and relocate this file to get it close to the origin in here. Now, one of the things that we can go and do is, manually move this and clean up the file. That's kind of what I did in here. I brought in the JPEG, traced over it, and was within the 0. And I didn't want to be right on it. I wanted to give myself some adjustments, but we can bring that in here and move it around. You want to make sure that you're consistent when you're bringing the file in. If you get a new update, you're going to have to place this in the same place again. And this is kind of where the disconnect comes in, that we have to have a way of logically placing this file in the same place over and over again in AutoCAD so that when we bring it into Revit for origin to origin, it goes to the right location. So
what I might suggest would be using the origin command and picking one of the property corners or something like that, so it was consistent.
Yeah, picking the property corner.
That's
or
what I was just going to say.
An end of a topo point. So sometimes I might use the end of this topo point or the property line right here. Whatever it is that you need to set up in there as your origin point, or that datum point that they established in here, and that datum marker, whatever it is, you want to have that in there as the origin point. Now there is a work through with a civil engineer, and I think, don't we have another question about civil?
We do. What's your recommendation for coordinating with civil, Brian?
So working with a civil engineer, two things. One, if they have Revit, there's a great workflow. I'll cover that second. If they don't have Revit, it's really getting them to understand what you need and why we need the origin point where it's located, that you're limited to 20 miles, really you're limited to 2 miles from the origin point, and then Revit just doesn't work. So what things we can do is have them give us a property line or something that's close. So if you don't have anything or some known datum that they're going to consistently, have them put a point that you can put as origin to origin. There's somewhere that's near where your site is. If you could just have them provide that one element, then we can make that the origin point in AutoCAD and redefine that when we go to bring in their CAD files over and over again. Now, if they do have Civil 3D and Revit, if they have access to Revit, and by the way, they can download a 30-day trial if they ever needed to do this workflow.
Yeah, and also if they've got the Infrastructure Design Suite Premium, that comes with Revit in it.
That's true, Revit Structure. And we have a webinar on this that Brian Haley and I recorded several months ago. I think it was back in August or September. So we'll point into that direction. Have them go look at that. We walk you through the steps in setting this up. What's happening is they're going to create an XML file, or no, an HTML file that redoes the origin point. And then you guys agree what the new origin is going to be and what's the northern direction of that property line. And all we do is we get those files from them. We'll get the civil file and we'll get this HTML file. I'll go into my extensions. Nope, must be under add-ins. And under add-ins, I'm going to get this import shared coordinates from, oh, it is an XML file. I apologize. From XML file. So I just run this. That's the only thing I have to do. I click the same 2 points that the civil engineer did, and I'm done. So on my end, it's very minor. The intensive part is more on the civil engineer side, and they have to have both Civil 3D and Revit open at the same time to make this done. All right.
Man, what's the difference between graded region and splitting the surface?
Okay, that's a great question. So getting back to the difference between graded region and split surface. What a graded region does is it duplicates the topography, so then you end up with 2 topo surfaces rather than 1 inside the file and changes the phases. Okay? Split surface, all that does is you have 1 surface and you're going to make it into 2 separate surfaces, and then you can deal with the inner surface versus the outer surfaces, or the left versus the right. So that's kind of the general part of it. So let me do the graded region, create one exactly like the new one. I'll select this. I'll hit finish. And what you'll see in here is that when I select these, and under my filter, I have 2 topo surfaces in here. Not 1, but there are 2 topo surfaces. Now you're going to see a little bit of hidden lines, and that's the differences because I started changing things. But because I changed the original, we don't get to see the original topo parts that I put in here. I have to remake the first one. But here, I'll give us a little preview in here. Now, if I select this, I can see in here I'm in the new construction. Actually, I'm in the old one. So I'm going to set this to existing. And then what we will see if I go to a realistic view, let me go to consistent color view, I'm going to get the rated one. The red one is the existing surface. So we can see that's existing and new. So I'm actually going to come in here, and instead of show all, I'll say show complete. Now I've gotten rid of the old one. Now I'll just come in here and just do a quick change. I'm just going to go in and move a couple of these dots, control points back. Dots, sure. Hit finish. Technical terms. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to come back into my view, and I'm going to say show all. And we can see there is the old surface and the new surface. And if I select any of those surfaces, I get the net cut fill of what I'm doing it, and I can schedule this out. So this is how you get those net cut fill areas and everything else that everybody wants to desire.
Also known as existing ground and finished ground.
Yes, technical terms. You're learning a lot.
All right, so Brian, how would you make a point and origin point in AutoCAD? And also, if you reset the coordinates, does that not negate using real-world coordinates?
Yes. If you reset the coordinates, I'll answer the second question first, you are negating the real-world coordinates. Here's a reality check. We don't use real-world coordinates in Revit.
What?
Yes. Surprise! When you're looking at the origin point in here, and you're going, whoa, wait, Brian.
Your building's not 100 feet above sea level? I'm surprised.
Not really. You saw me move it another 9,000 feet above what it was on that file. But here, you know, north, south, east, west elevation, there's no such thing as curvature of the earth. We don't deal with any of that stuff. State plane systems. There's surveyor's feet and normal feet. No one understands what that means unless you're into surveying. Yes, there's two types of feet system. Feet system? Foot system? What's the technical term?
Feet system.
Feet system. Two types of feet systems in the world.
Footer system.
Footer system.
No, I don't know. I just made that up.
All right. So yeah, we're not going to be using those real world coordinates. So the next question, well, how do I go in and change that in AutoCAD? So in AutoCAD, you might have the site plan, and something's drawn. Let's see if I can draw in AutoCAD again. And I have a site stuff way out here somewhere. Let's pretend it's 20 miles away. Here's how you do it. You go into Revit terms. You got to go move first. So I go to move, select it. Oh man, I am rusty. And then I grab the point. Let's say that this is the property line, and I move that right to the origin point, just like that. And that's how you're going to get it moved to wherever you need. So you find whatever point you need, and you move that towards the origin. If you're ever having trouble finding the origin in AutoCAD, just hit L. I usually start a point, and then for my second point, I put 0, 0. In there, hit enter. Oh, why didn't it go? At 0, 0. Yeah. So L. Come on, Jennifer, help me out here. 0, 0.
Try one more, 0.
Comma. There it is. 0. Oh, I didn't finish anything on my zeros.
Good thing Jennifer's here.
And yeah, so then it goes back to that origin point, and you can see I draw the line going back to that original point, and then it helps me find it. And again, that could be 100 miles away. Your site plan might be way out there. You'll never be able to see when you do zoom extension. You'll never be able to see the origin and the site plan because they're in different parts of the country, really. So you have to go in and kind of locate this to a logical spot. Jennifer, you have anything to add? Another better way of doing this in AutoCAD?
I'm trying to think. Is there the origin command? You can set your origin closer to your site instead of moving your site closer to your origin.
There used to be. Is it HP origin?
HP just handles hatches, I believe.
Oh, so
UCS would be the other one that I can think of. Off the top.
UCS, but you would have to use the UCS and make sure it's absolute versus world.
Yeah.
So can you change the absolute origin?
As far as I know.
Okay. I just don't know how to do it.
I just have to play around with that, so I'm kind of on the spot.
Okay.
Let's go.
Well, that's a good question for AutoCAD Answers.
There you go.
What's the next time we're doing AutoCAD Answers?
January.
January.
We just had one.
We just had one the other day, so that's a good question. Maybe I'll listen in and
We're going to do
ask.
it in about a year.
In about a year,
Next year.
sometime next year. All right. Let's see. I think we might have some other questions on here.
A general question, but very specific. I have a foundation wall with 4-inch foam on the exterior, 8-inch concrete, then a 3.5-inch framed wall. This wall is 3 feet above my slab and 3 foot 2 inches below my slab. I have unlocked my framed wall from the bottom and have moved it so it is on my slab. But when I do this, a footer is created on this unlocked portion of the wall. So in effect, I am given 2 footers. One is at the elevation of my slab, the other is at the proper level. How do I remove this second footer? Brian?
Sounds like you got to buy one, get one free scenario.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a topo question.
So we can't answer it, sorry.
Yeah,
just kidding.
But that might be one we look at in here. I'm just trying to get, you've unlocked your frame wall from the bottom with the slab. I'm trying to wrap on what we're talking about in here. Foundation wall, 4-inch foam on the exterior. Doesn't really matter. So you have 2 walls because you unlocked. Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Do we have any other topo questions? Well, I'm trying to think about this one. Doesn't look like we do. Looks like we're wrapping up anyway. We're almost done anyway, so I'm going to come in and see if I can create this wall. So my understanding, and Kyle, just make me understand, hopefully, I'm just going to put 2 layers in this wall. So I've got 8 inches and 6 inches for a structural wall. So we're not worried about what kind of material it is. I don't think that's going to come into play in here. So then I'm going to preview it. I'm going to put this in section. I'm going to reveal some secrets. Hey, you can actually unlock these layers. Come on, unlock it. There we go. So I can move this up and down.
Wait, should we have the interns turn off the webinar at this point?
Yeah. Well, this is, yeah, they could be. All right, so let's get back into this wall in here. And now I can come in, if I grab the wrong layer, grab that layer, move it down. Kyle, is this what you're going on to? You're dealing something with this, and they're putting a foundation on this wall, and you're getting, yes, this deal right here. Looks good. It looks great, let me tell you that. That is an issue, yes. Make them two separate walls would be my thing. That would be the first and foremost. Because,
Is that one of those insect things we never see from Autodesk software?
yeah, this is, as far as I know,
Wow, that is so cool.
yeah, it is cool. So you might need this for one of your projects coming up. Yeah, they're the same. Unfortunately, it is the same element. I think I've tried to deal with this once before, and the solution is to actually make these.
Stop laughing out loud at us.
Yes, I know. To make this two separate walls is the solution to come back in here. So if we had, a generic 6-inch wall,
I don't know about solution, more like workaround.
it is a solution.
We have a saying here at
It
CAD-1.
is a solution.
The
because,
workaround becomes the workflow.
Yeah, the workaround becomes... Great, that's a good one. All right, so
I should say that comes from Autodesk.
that is, that is true. All right, I didn't say that. Okay.
This is an Autodesk feature, in fact.
This is Premiere features. So now I'm going to come in here and draw a wall. Why is it not working? 3 inches. Tab. There we go. Outside, so two different walls. That's how I've handled it in the past. Move that down. Actual match properties, so we can both be the same type of wall. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Select this one and put it at 0. Oh, come on. So now we've got that in here, and then you're going to go, oh, they look like two different walls. That's horrible. That's because you go to Modify, and we go to Join, and we join this one to this one, and hey, it looks like the same wall. And then we come back inside and put the footer down at the other
Yay!
And then you're going to say, okay, we've got our bearing in where we might want it to be, and I could do that separately for both walls if I need to and kind of control that independently. So there you go, folks. That looks like the same wall in there, except this one's correct, that one isn't. This also helps for brick ledges and stuff. So, hey, you got a brick legend here? Oh, that's how you're going to get those types of things done.
We had a
Within the wall. And I like this feature a lot better by keeping these separate walls. Now, you also have eccentricity, so if you need to move this over, we can move that over a foot to one side or the other, so you can adjust for the load when you're putting that down the wall. So there you go, some other stuff on actually doing foundations in here.
We had a FYI come in, says Site Designer doesn't get along with Revit Topo tools. If you manipulate the topo with any Revit tools after you've created a topo surface within Site Designer, it will delete anything you do.
That is a bug right now, and yeah, we're not getting into Site Designer. I don't want to necessarily talk about that one yet because that one was introduced back at Art 2, which is a release we had added back in September. So those are the Site Designer tools. And what I found is they work just as well as they did when it was SiteWorks, which is they, for the most part, aren't doing a great job yet. So I'm really holding my breath now that Autodesk has picked up Site Designer or SiteWorks or Site whatever. And I'm almost to the point of saying I want to wait until 16 comes out and see what's going to be developed in here. The tools are still a little clunky. Just wanted to let you know that they're out there. Now, if we do get a bigger response, and I'm seeing somebody saying, hey, when are you going to do a Site Designer webinar? Maybe soon, maybe not, I guess is what I'm getting to, because I've been playing with these tools, and I'm not quite happy with them yet.
Yeah, he's holding his breath. It'll be hard to do a webinar.
Yeah, if I hold my, don't hold your breath. If I hold my breath, then I can't talk, and that becomes a problem. Anyway, let's see, I think that's all the questions we have. That's all the time we have today, folks. Hopefully, you guys have learned a few things in here. Again, these webinars are recorded. Hopefully we recorded this one, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hopefully it gets published in there. So we thank you guys very much on here. So if I do site designer webinar, we'll look for it. If not, we'll look at something else. But yeah, so thank you guys very much. Again, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And that kind of concludes today. So thank you all.
Everybody have a very happy Thanksgiving.
And drive safe.
Eat lots of turkey. And then take a nap.
And bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.